What's going on, guys? It's Daniel from CoinSpots here. Happy Tuesday, as always. Also, happy Bitcoin Pizza Day, right? So, if you don't know, today, May 22nd, back in 2010, that's when the first Bitcoin purchase ever occurred for those two pizzas. It's pretty much infamous now. It was like 10,000 Bitcoin for two pizzas, posted up on the Bitcoin Talk forums, and pretty much everyone's been trolling and obviously giving the guy a bunch of crap for purchasing those pizzas, because those 10,000 Bitcoin would obviously today be worth millions of dollars. But yeah, go out there, get yourself a pizza today, celebrate. But yeah, other than that, we're going to get into some TA and some news headlines today. Obviously, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin, some trade opportunities that are going on with it. Also taking a look at ETH, EOS, and then we're going to be switching over to some CFTC regulatory/advisory guidelines that have just come out. And then an interesting article that gives a different perspective on Bitcoin and kind of cryptocurrency in general, a negative perspective, I should say. So yeah, get it in here into Bitcoin on the daily chart. Actually, scratch that. We're going to zoom in onto the 4-hour, because that's where some of these big setups are, or I shouldn't say big, but short-term setups at least, that could be taking place. So let's kind of get everything nice and organized here. I know I have a little bit more lines than usual here, but first of all, I wanted to alert everybody on this trade here. Obviously, it already occurred. I did not take it. I wasn't watching it, but this is kind of a good learning experience here in terms of a short SFP setup, swing failure pattern setup. So as you can see right here, let me switch over to my arrow pointer. Right here on this candle, we had a high. This was the swing high. We pulled back, so we have this 3-bar reversal basically, right? We have a lower high to the left and a lower high to the right. So this was the swing high. When here, we broke through the swing high. However, we closed below it, signaling this is right here at the close of this candle, the one that I've got my pointer on right now. At the close of this candle would be when you would initiate your short position. And as you can see, that would have paid off pretty nicely right now. As I said, I was not in this trade. I did take another SFP setup back over here, which I made a couple $100 off of, which was really nice. But this is just kind of a good learning experience in terms of SFPs and how to watch for these SFP setups. Speaking of that, actually, I forgot who on Twitter posted a really useful indicator here on TradingView. Basically, it's called the Swing High Low Support and Resistance by Pattern Smart. You could basically just look this up right here in the search bar. I favorited it because it's actually really, really useful. So if we, let's see, zoom out a little bit. It's going to get a little bit kind of clustered around here, but if we click this and turn it on, and then we switch over to a 3 swing length, it will show you basically some of the swing highs and swing lows. So as you can see right here, boom, it caught this one, and boom, right here, it's catching this one that I'm about to talk about. So honestly, I just found this out yesterday, and it's a pretty useful tool. If you're having some trouble identifying the swing highs and the swing lows, definitely go check this one out. It's totally free. Patternsmart.com is totally awesome for making this, because it will definitely help out newer people in terms of identifying swing highs and swing lows. So basically, you can kind of just go on the charts, map out the swing high and swing low that you think there is and turn on this indicator and see if you're right. So this is definitely something really, really useful that you guys should go check out. Again, it's called, you can't see it here because my chart or candles are blocking it. Swing High, Low Support and Resistance by Pattern Smart. Right. So apart from that previous SFP setup, we're actually heading into a new SFP setup right here. Scratch that. Not an SFP setup. I've been taking a look at too many SFPs these days. But another potential short setup on the retest of this level. So actually, if we get a little bit more granular and go in onto the 1 hour chart, we've been mapping out this level right here at, what is that, 81.70. So you can see we've got 3 touches, one here, and one here. Obviously, these 2 bounces were relatively strong. This bounce right here is weak, and we're coming down again to retest this level. Now, this we can say it has confluence with our 0.5 Fibonacci level, one of the 3 levels that I trade. And what we're basically looking for here is if we have a retest of this short setup level right here. So basically, if we go down like that, make that a little bit cleaner. Oh, you know why? I have magnet mode on, that's why. If we go down and then we retest this level, like so, and then that lets us go down again, right? Because now this level would provide a resistance. And basically, you would be getting in on the first retest of this support level currently that would turn to resistance. And if you are looking for price targets, most likely it would be, let's see, we're going to zoom out here to the 4 hour. This low setup right here. So actually, if we take out these arrows, a little bit clustered here, this level right here, which was the previous low, you could take out a trade right here, which is on the retest of this level, basically making what? About 3%, right, on margin. That's definitely a very, very good trade. But on top of that, you should keep your eyes peeled for a long SFP over here. Just like we had over here with this wick extending over the previous swing high, we're going to be taking a look at if there's a wick that breaks this swing low but closes above the swing low, so closes above this long SFP level. That would be giving you the signal to take out a long here on Bitcoin. Definitely something to keep your eyes peeled for. Now, if that doesn't work, obviously not every SFP is going to work. The other levels, or pretty much the zone that a lot of people are talking about, again, is right here between the 7,800 to 7,600 level. You could even extend this box a little bit further down, and that's the big zone that a lot of people are watching, with a potential for a wick to go down to all the way to 7,500. So that could happen if the SFP does not follow through, because as I said, we bounced at a pretty strange level here. This didn't have confluence with anything. And lo and behold, the weekly support zone turned into resistance pretty much on the dot with this box here, and we broke back down. So that's honestly another kind of tip to watch out for, right? If you're seeing these bounces at really strange levels, obviously that could mean that you missed an important SR level, or just a support or a resistance level. But if you know you didn't miss anything. It's just that there was a bounce there, but it's not going to hold, just like what happened here. We're now retesting the support, which has turned into resistance, and we're coming back down. So that's another potential setup for Bitcoin. On Twitter, I've also seen some charts floating around with an inverse head and shoulders kind of forming here. So if we have our head, let's switch over back to the arrow, our head, or the left shoulder right here, at least the top of it, the top of the right shoulder here, or actually, the shoulder would be down here. What am I talking about? The shoulder would be here. The left shoulder would be down here. The head would be here. And then the right shoulder would be forming right here, potentially at this support level, which is basically typically a little bit lower than the previous shoulder. So that could be happening in terms of a long setup, right at this SFP level. Could happen. So actually, that's even another thing, another indicator if you're going to be trading based on chart patterns, that inverse head and shoulder, pretty much if this SFP this SFP down here, the long SFP follows through, could be a confirmation of the inverse head and shoulders. So that's pretty much how Bitcoin is looking in the short term. Nothing really too long term in terms of the daily or the weekly. I covered that yesterday and how there really wasn't any, clear information in terms of where the candles closed and stuff like that. So this is just pretty much short term trades that you could be capitalizing on. Right, so moving on to ETH. Whoa, didn't want that. Again, wanted to point out a short SFP setup here, just kind of reiterating this SFP setup, because I think in these large cap coins where there's a lot more money coming in, you're seeing a lot more SFP setups. So we had this previous swing high, we broke the swing high and closed below it. Lo and behold, we went back down to the bottom of this range. So I've got this trading range basically mapped up. And this is actually right now an active trade that I'm going to be looking at taking. If we come down, retest the bottom of this range as resistance, and I will be getting in on that first retest, with the price target being this 75,000 Satoshi level. Simply because it's a pretty violent reaction level. As you can see, resistance, huge sell-off coming over here, back over here, and then we broke through this with a huge bullish candle. So this, as you can see, is a very violent level in terms of how we broke down and then how we shot up through it. Also provided resistance here, as you can see, very, very strong support. What am I talking about? Support here, right here. Support, as you can see, these huge long wicks. And anytime you see these huge long wicks, you know that it is a very, very strong support level, because people are not letting the price go below it. They are just buying it all the way back up. So this is a potential trade that I'm looking at right now on ETH. Going to be posting it up on Twitter, and I'm going to be keeping you guys updated there. And then a quick look actually at the weekly. It does show a bearish picture. We're actually going to take out these arrows because we do have this bearish pin bar that's pretty much formed right here. I know you can't see it too much or if it's zoomed out, but this is a bearish pin bar. You can see is black, and that is basically signifying the top right here. And obviously based on that candle pattern, if this candle closes below this bearish pin bar, we're obviously going to have a swing high here with our lower high to the left, lower high to the right, thus confirming pretty much this top here for ETH. Moving on to EOS, another potential trade set up for EOS. And this blue box here that I have kind of marked out is the previous high for EOS. So if we just zoom all the way back out, this is the previous high for EOS back here in January. And this is kind of the level that everyone's got their eyes on. Should be a pretty big support level if that happens. So definitely going to be looking at accumulating some EOS in this area here. I do also have a mapped out swing low just in case we have some kind of SFP formation here. Don't think that that's gonna happen. Typically, you don't see SFPs on EOS or other alts like that. It's really just Bitcoin and ETH, which are obviously the two biggest coins that are being traded right now, with a lot more money going in and out, and that's kind of why you have a lot more SFP setups in those cases. But really, just taking a look at this blue box here for ETH in terms of a time to get in, definitely. Right. So moving on to the news, basically a pretty big headline today was, or May 21st. Is that today? That is today. What am I doing? I'm totally lost. Oh no, today's May 22nd. Oh, I'm definitely lost. But basically, the CFTC has issued some regulatory or advisory guidelines, I should say, for virtual currencies, basically derivative virtual currencies. So if you don't know what a derivative is, basically it's just a type of contract that is based on some type of underlying asset, which in the regular stock market, it could be stocks, bonds, commodities, stuff like that. And obviously in this case, in terms of cryptocurrency, the derivatives they are talking about are futures contracts, right? Because there are four types of derivatives. We have forwards, futures, options, and spots. Yeah, spots. Forwards and futures are pretty much the same thing, except futures are able to be traded. So that's obviously what the CFTC is looking at now and kind of talking about with these derivative products. So the biggest takeaways from this are these things here on basically what they want to do, right? Enhanced market surveillance, and that ties in with close coordination with the CFTC staff. And obviously, right, since the derivatives or futures, Bitcoin futures in this case are tied to the underlying assets. So obviously the Bitcoin markets, the supply and demand in the Bitcoin markets, they want to have close monitoring of these markets, in order to see, where the prices are derived from. They want to know what is going on. So obviously that's not that's not a negative per se, right? And then another interesting one is large trader reporting. And obviously, this is pretty important because of market manipulation, right? They want to know what are the big players here in the Bitcoin space. And obviously, in the crypto market, there is a ton of market manipulation from whales. So monitoring large traders kind of goes hand in hand with surveilling these underlying markets in Bitcoin, Ethereum, stuff like that. Kind of judging or having some type of barometer for where the prices for the futures contracts are coming from. And then an interesting one here is outreach to member or market participants. So basically, it's like prior to listing a contract, the CFTC wants comments from people who are actively trading in that contract. So basically, if for example on the if we're on GDAX, for example, right? the traders on GDAX, whoever uses GDAX, would have, some type of, I guess, input or message to what they think about the listing of, this new contract for whatever token, right? Ethereum futures, for example. It would ask the traders on GDAX. Obviously, Ethereum futures is never going to be on GDAX, but kind of giving you a some type of example to kind of illustrate what this outreach to member and market participants means. So I don't know how that's going to go. It's definitely an interesting one. But overall, I think that this kind of, this isn't necessarily regulation. It's just the CFTC trying to learn more about the crypto markets, basically, and how to allow them to flourish without kind of hindering or putting, draconian, regulation on them, right? Because in order to know what to do, you need to study the market first. And I think that's really what the CFTC is trying to do here, trying to study the market before they add any kind of, firmer or stricter regulation, or a more defined regulation, I should say. Not necessarily stricter, but they need to know what is going on in the market in order to make regulation in general, per se, right? So I think this is honestly something that's really good. And, those close ties or close coordination with CFTC staff, that's basically just, people working on the exchanges, providing information with the CFTC, right? Which goes hand in hand with the large trader reporting. So overall, I think this is some pretty decent news. Definitely is going to help the crypto space in general, because regulation is pretty much inevitable. So moving on to our last bit, basically an article called "The Old Allure of New Money." And basically the premise of this was how Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies don't have value because they're simply just based on new technology, right? And the highlight piece of the article or the sentence is, practically no one outside of computer science departments can explain how cryptocurrencies work. So as you can see right there, I think this gives good insight into what people who aren't in the crypto market or believe in crypto kind of think, right? And I think it's important to see things from their perspective and see why they, think crypto is a scam, or, think it's a whole big Ponzi scheme, right? Because basically this article kind of details how people in the past have tried to base money off of other things besides like gold. So for example, he gave a couple examples about how people in the US try to base the value of the dollar off of things like electricity and other commodities like that, and that kind of fell through. And there's a few different other examples he gives here, but basically the premise is that none of those ever worked, and just because of this new blockchain technology, that doesn't necessarily mean crypto has value, in the long term, right? This could just be some type of short-term thing. And as I said, I think it's interesting to get the other person or the other side's perspective on crypto. Obviously, just because I don't agree with this, and pretty much anyone here in the crypto space is not going to agree with it, but it's really interesting to see what these guys on the other side of the coin are thinking, right? And honestly, the biggest counter to this is that, people are going to put value or give value to anything that they believe in, right? So this can be seen in virtual currencies in video games, for example, right? Anyone in that video game that has a certain currency tied to the game, people are going to give value to that currency. Obviously, the people who do give value to that currency are the ones who play that video game, right? Obviously, that's a niche example per one video game, but it's basically the premise that if enough people give value to it, people are going to use it, right? Same thing with Bitcoin. It's the trust in the decentralized system, and kind of an anger at, the banks and establishment that, a lot of people now don't necessarily trust with their money. They'd rather trust smart contracts or code that are pretty much infallible, you can say, right? And that trust that trust or that technology is what people have faith in, and they're putting more faith in that over something like the government, right? So overall, that premise pretty much just takes apart, or goes directly against what he says in this article, right? If there's enough people that give value to something, it can be used as a currency. It can have value, right? So this is definitely an interesting read. I will be linking it in the description as always. But it's just good to get information or read opinions that are on the other side of what you believe in. Because if you're just constantly reading news that kind of goes to your what's the word I'm looking for? Confirmation bias, right? If you're only reading news that confirms your initial belief, and then you're interpreting other news only to confirm your belief, that's not good as well. So it's better to look at pieces of news from both sides of the coin, and it'll definitely allow you to get some kind of a clearer picture. In this case, what people who are against cryptocurrency think and how they view crypto, and why it has no value, or as a Ponzi scheme, etc., etc. So yeah, definitely an interesting read. Other than that, that is all I have for you guys today. Keep a lookout on my Twitter. I'm going to be posting some of the setups and trades that I'm going to be taking. Hopefully they're good. As always, this is just a learning experience, kind of documenting what I'm doing with you guys. I'm always learning, always improving in this space. Don't claim to be an expert by any means. So yeah, if you could hit that like button, definitely helps grow out this channel. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, I will see you guys tomorrow.